Hello, and welcome to my channel Dead Domain. If this is the first time you've seen a video of mine, please excuse the silly background because, while I usually like to have fun on my videos, today will be a bit more of a serious subject. In the wake of Trump's election win, tensions have been pretty high in America. For many, this is now the third election they've been threatened with a Trump regime, and as always, there will be people who hand-wave away concerns saying, nothing is really gonna change. The problem is, things already have started to change, and if you're saying that, you probably just haven't noticed them. I'm making this video not to educate on why Trump is bad, but for people who need it, who want to put into words what they've been feeling to their friends or family who voted for Trump. If you've been sent this video, I can only assume it's in response or maybe preemptively declining an invite to Thanksgiving or Christmas or another family event, and it's probably because you voted for Trump and that support hurts someone you know. Again, I'm not here to list off everything he's done and show you any number of dozens and dozens of detailed news articles. There are more comprehensive videos out there for when you realize the entire Republican establishment has been lying to your face. During his presidency, we saw the attitudes Donald Trump emboldened, open violence, and praising that violence towards political opposition. The first few months of his presidency saw the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, which was the largest neo-Nazi gathering in modern memory. Then, of course, there was January 6th. At this point, there's no excuse for you to have voted for Trump. I'm sure some of you don't think it's that big of a deal. You simply want things to be less expensive again, or perhaps you don't really pay attention to politics. Maybe your family has always voted Republican. Maybe you think his economic policy just makes more sense, or maybe you have a grudge against Kamala for stealing your lunch money in 3rd grade. Or maybe you just haven't been paying attention to the people he surrounds himself with. But ignorance isn't a valid excuse, not after 8 years. We know, factually, that the Trump administration was responsible for the COVID outbreak and failed to prevent a nationwide pandemic at every level because of Trump's leadership, leading to the deaths of over 1 million Americans. We know, as a matter of legal record, that Donald Trump is a rapist and a wife beater. We know for a fact that he was good friends with Jeffrey Epstein well into his time in the White House after Epstein had already been convicted of pedophilia and sex trafficking. We watched him face due process for corruption after stealing White House documents. We know he makes fun of people who are different, that he disrespects veterans and service members, that he makes backroom deals, that he only works in service of the rich and powerful. Look no further than his cabinet picks, consisting entirely of people who have breathlessly praised him and his golfing buddies. Those aren't exactly high qualifications. Despite promising economic recovery from inflation under Biden, he only has concepts of a plan for uprooting and replacing the Affordable Care Act, and every reputable economist that has looked at Trump's future economy plans say they are ridiculous and will make the current problems much worse. These are not liberal mainstream propaganda or whatever Trump's base or campaigns might tell you, they're verifiable facts. He also has no idea how tariffs work, and if they're enacted the way he promises, it will be devastating to the economy. Not to people like Donald Trump or Elon Musk. They're rich, they'll be fine. Everyone else won't. And if you voted for Trump in spite of all this, it means they weren't enough of a deal breaker. A rapist, racist, sexual predator who appeases anyone for his own personal gain and only cares about his own self-image. It means that despite all the reporting, all the warning signs, you still decided to vote for cruelty. You might say, well, not actually that much is going to change, just like last time. And for most of us who aren't straight, white, or privileged enough to take part in the political process, we can already see it's not going to be like last time. Trump on his own, regardless of my personal opinions on the man, isn't nearly as impactful as the people who follow him, who have grafted their hateful ideologies onto his. The alt-right, the Nazis, the people who call in bomb threats to children's hospitals. Whether you've been paying attention or not, Trump's movement now consists of fringe radicals and conspiracy crank like RFK Jr., a man who killed over 80 people in a measles outbreak in Samoa, plays with dead baby animals like they're Muppets, and has a literal brain parasite he got from eating bad meat. Meet the man Trump wants to put in charge of the HHS and the USDA. Trump has spent his campaign distancing himself from Project 2025, a mandate for leadership for his next presidency that outlines the policy goals of far-right Washington think tanks like the Heritage Foundation. These billionaire-funded lobbies have been major forces behind movements to remove abortion rights, which we've already seen lead to real pain and death as women with unviable pregnancies have been forced to carry a dead fetus to term, in the process killing them. this will continue to get worse. Not because Trump cares or isn't interested in being pro-life, but because the people around him want to take that control away from women. As ineloquently stated by actual neo-Nazi Nick Fuentes, who, by the way, dined with Trump at Mar-a-Lago, in this tweet saying, "Your body, my choice." Seeing these ideas proclaimed boldly and proudly from Trump supporters may be one of the reasons you were sent this video if you voted for Trump. Because even if you weren't paying attention enough to know about the greater system of orbiters around Trump, someone you love has to deal with these people anyway. They have to deal with posts like this, that thanks to free speech warrior Elon Musk now have maximum exposure as hundreds of men openly praise and threaten raping women and forcing them into pregnancy. This is what Trump has emboldened. It is what the people around him have emboldened. And if you didn't realize that voting for Trump would lead to this, it's because you haven't been paying attention. Imagine a woman in your life, your mother, your sister, your wife, had these things yelled at them on the street. How would you react? Would you just shrug and say, well, I don't agree with everything he says? When you know his movement is the reason people feel so comfortable saying these things so openly. You might not agree with everything Trump supporters say, but if you voted for him and his policies, you've done nothing to distance yourself from them. There are numerous old sayings about the company you keep that apply here. If you have a queer or LGBTQ friend or family member who sent you this, they've probably been getting similar messages. I myself have received several messages saying Trump is going to kill me. While I think this is a little extreme and wishful thinking on their part, the reality again is that Trump probably doesn't care. It's the people in his administration who use him to get more power that will be dangerous. In the last few years, there has already been a wave of concentrated propaganda and legislation dedicated to pushing queer people out of regular life. And despite what some more polite arguments might try to convince you of, it's not just because of women's sports, because we have the data to show that trans women who undergo hormone therapy are physically identical in outcome to their cis female counterparts, and unlike what propaganda wants you to believe, don't just dominate every competition they take part in. No, this wave of propaganda, once again grafted to the alt-right appeal of the Trump movement, has been spearheaded by people like Matt Walsh and Haya Reichik, two people I've extensively covered, you can watch videos on my channel of them, who have far more capacity for cruelty than brain cells, even if that's not saying much. And this is an area I can speak to with some personal authority as an out trans creator that not only appears on camera, but covers in-depth and controversial political subjects. The vitriol against trans and LGBTQ people has grown orders of magnitude worse in the last few years. On Elon's new free speech Twitter, death threats and encouragement to suicide are commonplace, once again, emboldened by people like Trump. And in a recent video, Trump has announced plans to strip all trans and gender transition healthcare from federal funding. For millions of trans and queer people, they struggle every day to get what little care they can that is shown to help them improve their lives and be more productive. And this isn't about protecting kids. This is aimed at adults. It was never about protecting kids. It was always about forcing others to live how they want. The ability to live happy, fulfilling lives. The freedom to choose who you are and will be, that's what Trump's government plans to take away at a federal level. This is despite every major medical organization agreeing that the proper care for gender dysphoria is transition treatment, because science and medical consensus don't matter as much as excluding anyone they don't like or don't understand. So if you have a queer friend or family member that were sent these things, how would you feel? Angry? Sad? Afraid like they feel because, just like cis women, they see legions of people suddenly threatening them with bodily harm just for who they are. If you voted for Trump, you voted for this. What's more, Republican efforts to strip trans healthcare and healthcare in general, to push them out of public life, to make them go to bathrooms that will put them in actual danger, will all likely proceed with Trump's blessing. To take away funding from negligible expenses that genuinely help and improve people's lives. But Trump won't take funding away from the ongoing genocide in Gaza. Trump has shown no sympathy for the Gazan population that now has 43,000 dead after a year of unrelenting barrages by the Israeli military. The world has watched as the United States continued to aid Israel as we see the craven bloodlust of their soldiers laughing and making light of the tens of thousands of Palestinian civilians senselessly murdered. If you've been deluded into believing Netanyahu and his campaign have anything to do with Hamas, you're as ignorant as Trump. 70% of all dead in Palestine are women and children. Trump doesn't care about their suffering. It's just another shithole country to him. He has encouraged Netanyahu to finish the job. His words. And of course, this election affects anybody who isn't white, as Trump's agenda has long targeted illegal immigrants, and he's promising to export millions on day one and revoke constitutional birthright citizenship. Trump is a documented racist, so it shouldn't be a surprise that right after the election we've seen a spate of racial invective, including this story about black children who received text messages about putting them on plantations. Stories like this have popped up all over the country. This is what he's emboldened. You might try and say, well, Trump doesn't support that, but it's what his supporters support. It's what his supporters feel validated in supporting. Now, how much of this legislative agenda will go through is still up to speculation. Maybe Trump will deport millions of hardworking immigrants on day one, maybe he won't. As last term showed, it doesn't really matter what he actually does. He grifted and pilfered from hardworking Americans, let hundreds of thousands die from COVID. He had record tax cuts for the wealthy while poor people continued making less money. And after praising Javier Milei's economic policy that has led to record extreme poverty in Argentina, he's going into a second term, not only looking to completely restructure the government to suit his whims, but to continue making the wealthy even more money. He doesn't care about you if you voted for him. But it doesn't matter, because for the people who wanted him in office most fervently, they don't actually care about legislation. They probably won't care that their health care is being stripped away to make insurance companies more money, or that Social Security will be dismantled. They probably won't care about Trump's tariffs raising the prices on everyday goods if enacted as promised. No, all they care about is seeing Trump's victory as an excuse to spread hate, violence, and vitriol, to threaten to rape, torture, and kill. And if you are friends or family with somebody who has sent you this video, someone who is a woman, queer, a person of color, or any mixture, that person now has to live in even more fear because of how those people have been emboldened. So if you've been sent this video, it's because you voted for hatred, animosity, and rape threats. You voted for a movement that will kill women seeking life-saving healthcare and will do everything it can to make queer people ostracized from society. You voted for racism and exclusion at any cost, even to you personally, because if all of Trump's proposed plans go into action, you will be affected too, even if you didn't know it. Even if you weren't paying attention, or you just hand-waved away every story from the liberal media's propaganda. Even if you just wanted to get rid of inflation and save some money on the price of eggs. You voted for this.